Operation Northwoods, the U.S. plot to sacrifice its own citizens. In 1962, the U.S. Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff proposed a covert plan known as Operation Northwoods. Declassified decades later, the document revealed a shocking scheme to orchestrate terrorist attacks against American civilians and military targets, blame them on Cuba, and justify a U.S. invasion. This grotesque plan, approved by the Joint Chiefs but ultimately rejected by President Kennedy, exposed the terrifying depths of deception some officials were willing to embrace in the name of power and control. Though it was never carried out, the spirit of Northwoods never truly died. Rather, it evolved. The events of 9/11 bear a disturbing resemblance to the blueprint laid out in Northwoods. Hijacked planes, civilian casualties, manufactured consent for war. These were not unforeseeable accidents of fate, but mechanisms eerily familiar to those who studied Cold War strategies of psychological manipulation and engineered crises. The so-called war on terror that followed transformed the Middle East into a battlefield of endless conflict, serving the interests not of the people, but of an elite few who profited from war, resource control, and mass surveillance. Similarly, the war in Gaza, like the war in Ukraine, reveals how global conflicts are often orchestrated not merely through geopolitical tension, but through carefully managed narratives and provocations. Who benefits when Russia is lured into war by NATO's creeping expansion eastward? Who profits when civilians in Gaza are caught in a cycle of bombing, blockade, and despair? The answer is not found in the official speeches of presidents and prime ministers, but behind the scenes, among those who fund both sides of every war. History offers precedents. The Rothschild banking dynasty, for example, is frequently cited for its role in financing both Britain and France during the Napoleonic Wars. By supporting all sides and controlling the debt that followed, they expanded their influence and wealth while soldiers died in the mud of Europe. These same patterns emerge today, hidden beneath the veneer of democracy and diplomacy. The blood of soldiers, civilians, and children becomes the currency of empire. Zbigniew Brzezinski, former U.S. National Security Advisor, famously stated that controlling Eurasia was key to global dominance. It is no coincidence that Ukraine, a borderland between East and West, was used as a pressure point against Russia. Decades of NATO encroachment, combined with a Western-backed coup in 2014, pushed Russia to the brink. The war that followed devastated Ukraine, isolated Russia, and once again, lined the pockets of arms manufacturers and energy monopolies. Aaron Russo, a Hollywood director and political activist, once recounted his conversations with Nicholas Rockefeller. According to Russo, Rockefeller predicted the events of 9/11 11 months in advance and described how the attacks would justify war in the Middle East and the erosion of civil liberties. If true, this confession is not only damning but emblematic of how the elite see the world, not as a community of nations, but as a chessboard where oil, surveillance, and war are the pieces of the game. Let us not forget the lies about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. The CIA, along with the British government under Tony Blair, claimed Saddam Hussein posed an existential threat. Millions protested, but the war went ahead. Over 1 million lives were lost, a nation was shattered, and no WMDs were ever found. No trials were held, no apologies given. Blair and George W. Bush Jr. went on to reap financial rewards through their connections to the oil and military-industrial sectors. Justice was nowhere to be seen, only profit. This is not conspiracy theory, it is history repeating itself in plain sight. So the question remains, who truly commands the machinery of such power? It is not the presidents or parliaments we see on television, but the banking dynasties, oil cartels, intelligence networks, and private corporations that transcend nations. They are the hidden hands behind crises, the architects of wars, and the engineers of fear. Operation Northwoods was not an anomaly. It was a window into a system that sees human life as expendable, war as profitable, and truth as malleable. To understand the present, we must recognize the patterns of the past and acknowledge the brutal reality that many so-called accidents of history are carefully staged events, designed to serve interests far removed from those of the people.